What's up, everyone? It's Dakota, and welcome back to another installment of the Why Nobody Plays series, a series where we look at cards or decks that belong to certain formats that had seen a lot of competitive success and were even staples at one point of their respective formats, and then kind of just fell off the face of the earth and really see little to no competitive play at all whatsoever, at least on a serious level. And today we have a curious case of another Innistrad card, which, I alluded to in the Liliana video, which you should totally check out after this one, that Innistrad had a ton of cards that made a huge impact on Standard, on Modern, and then eventually, the older formats like Legacy. And this is a card that, unlike Liliana, I'm actually kind of perplexed doesn't see any actual serious competitive play. Its power level usually hinges on what is available to it and the tools that are available to it in the format. And I thought that would have been the case. And honestly, I'm starting to wonder if the card itself has to actually be good rather than kind of the tools around it and everything. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about Snapcaster Mage and its unfortunate fall from being one of the best creatures that were available to you in Modern just a short few years ago. So let's go ahead, let's take a look at the card, and let's talk about it. So here we have Snapcaster Mage, the human wizard that for a long time was kind of a staple of control decks and, Splinter Twin decks and things like that, where it showed up in smaller numbers for like Splinter Twin, but was a very good utility card nonetheless to kind of like forward its plan B. And then also as control, just getting to be extra copies of other removal spells, other counter spells, and things like that. So really quick, going over it, Snapcaster Mage, a 1 generic and 1 blue for a 2/1 human wizard with flash. When Snapcaster Mage enters the battlefield, target instant or sorcery card in your graveyard gains flashback until end of turn. Flashback cost is equal to its mana cost. So of note, you could not cast the cards that had undefined costs, which are usually like Ancestral Visions and Crashing Footfalls and Living End are kind of the cards that we know, really the latter two. We know a lot in current Modern, how the format is kind of shaken out. You could not cast them because they have an undefined cost, even though their converted mana cost is 0, like when you Cascade. When you try to give it flashback or whatnot, you can't cast it because it has no cost, like literally no cost. And you cannot suspend it because that is not casting the card, which flashback says that you can cast the card for its flashback cost. So it doesn't really work all that great with those kind of broken spells. But even without that, Snapcaster Mage has been a very good role player and was a very good role player in Modern, through the 2010s. I mean, really up until the end of like the 2010s. Snapcaster Mage, I believe, in two parts, it kind of hinges on the power of the instants and sorceries that are seeing play in the format, on top of how good a 2-mana 2/1 with flash actually was. So we had a decent amount of formats where a 2-mana 2/1, just playing it as just a ambush viper was kind of good enough. You would kind of see it in control mirrors where, you would play this on like turn 2 when your opponent played like a tap land, and the game kind of hinged around getting rid of Snapcaster Mage at that point. You'd cast like removal spells. You had the option to like counter them, whatever, kind of play these games. Of course, it comes down to actually reading the room and kind of understanding the matchup and everything. But a lot of the time you could just play Snapcaster Mage as a 2-mana 2/1, and it ended up being good enough in a lot of matchups where your opponent wanted to be a little bit more reactive. This kind of got under some of those reactive spells, and of course you can kind of generate some advantage from your opponent having to kind of play like on their main phase or play off curve to try to deal with a Snapcaster Mage. It was just a very annoying card to deal with. On the flip side of that, when you're thinking about like formats where we had Splinter Twin was kind of a big one, where Splinter Twin was this combo deck that could win the game on turn 4, but then also played kind of like this mini burn strategy where it just kind of like poke you with some of its creatures, and then it'd bolt you, and then it could like snap bolt and, just kind of kill you out of nowhere. And like it made kind of like these blue-red decks feel like they were playing 8 lightning bolts, or, however many like lightning bolts plus Snapcaster Mages you were playing. And bolt was a very good removal spell for the format. While it didn't necessarily kill like Tarmogoyfs or anything like that, you could end up hitting Lilianas, you could end up hitting like Dark Confidants, you could hit their Mana Dorks, you could interact with the Splinter Twin combo favorably in that way. Bolt did a lot of work, and in which case, like Snapcaster Mage as well ended up being, just very powerful. Because again, the 2-mana, the 2/1 body was pretty good in the format as well, and you already kind of got your value once the Snapcaster Mage had came into play. On top of that too, as obviously the formats went on, and we have seen in Modern a lot, the spells are getting more efficient and they're getting more powerful. So when we got like Fatal Push, that was like the bolt killer. That was kind of like the decline of like Tarmogoyf, because like Snap Push in a lot of formats was very good. Just getting to play Fatal Push itself was very powerful as well, because again, you were hitting all the same things that Lightning Bolt could hit, but you were also able to actually kill Tarmogoyf. And really, anything that like Lightning Bolt could deal with, Push dealt with and did it better in a lot of cases, and fit into a lot of other decks better. And blue mid-rangey / control decks was still very good. Even now, like I believe like Snap Preordain would probably be pretty good as well, albeit obviously not nearly as powerful as like the other things you can do, but nonetheless still just kind of like this good value card where you could get a ton of advantage, even in like the Grixis Shadow days where you played a long enough game and you were able to, because you were able to play like Thoughtseize and things like that. Snap Thoughtseize was good. Snap Kolaghan's command was absolutely backbreaking. You Snapcaster Mage, get back a Shadow, like deal with like the last card in your opponent's hand, maybe hit them for 2 damage, kill one of their creatures, and the fact that Snapcaster Mage itself on board is going to protect you naturally from edicts from like top deck Lilianas as well is just crazy. Just an immense amount of value, and in a way like would swing games heavily in your favor and force your opponent to top deck very well, especially in those mid-range mirrors where it comes down to how well you use the resources you're given and a little bit of luck like in the end games and things like that when you're both hellbent. So Snapcaster Mage, again, we've talked about how good this card is, and again, how much better it gets when the spells in the format that it gets to flash back are, even better. They're more efficient. They do a lot more. It's crazy. A very good card. Now, why the heck does it not see any competitive play or any real competitive play? Of course, we see like Grixis Wizards, Blue-Red Wizards, stuff like that. Like that really like its metagame share in comparison to the rest of the format that could technically could play Snapcaster Mage but doesn't, is like so low that's not even worth looking at. Like of note, it is a wizard, so like Flame of Anor could give you the benefit of getting to choose 2 modes instead of 1 with Snapcaster Mage, and being able to like snap Flame of Anor, 5 mana to like draw 2 cards and like deal 5, essentially remove a creature and you get a 2/1 body. I would say that's like a pretty good rate all around, but it's not what the format is about. So, a lot of the time, like power creep is the reason why cards don't get to see play, and why we see a lot of like older creatures that were staples in the format now just kind of struggle to see any play at all. And Snapcaster Mage is in this curious camp where half of what makes it good is due to power creep, like where we have these more expensive, or these spells that end up doing a lot more. We see like the prismatic endings are very versatile. We have Unholy Heaths. We still have Fatal Push, which is still a decent option. Lightning Bolt seeing more play. Snap Bolt is still very good. And just all these other things that you can do with Snapcaster Mage still apply today and are arguably better than they were 10 years ago. I think a lot of why Snapcaster Mage is a little bit worse now is kind of the same reason why other 1 toughness creatures, like humans as a broad deck, and going even further, like ignoble hierarchs and noble hierarchs and things like that. 1 toughness creatures aren't very good. Snapcaster Mage is going to allow you to cast another one of your spells, and that's going to be the end of it. Snapcaster Mage more than likely in most games is, going to come down at best, maybe get in 1 hit. At worst, it's going to immediately die once it kind of hits the battlefield due to, like Orcish Bowmaster, and like snapping back like cantrips and things like that aren't going to be good in the face of Orcish Bowmaster, which is like the most played card in the format. Not even joking. It's not very good against Rhinos because like it can block 1, but you're saving like 1 damage because they have trample. And of course, if you're playing against like domain rhinos, like you're just going to absolutely get ran over and bodied. And, getting to Snapcaster back, whatever, just isn't going to be good enough when you really don't have time to. And I think that's part of where it comes down to is the 2-1 body is not that very impactful. The speed in which the format plays, I mean, your opponents are putting 8 to 10 power into play on turn 3, 8 power on your end step. There's also games where your opponent is also just making, 4/4 vigilant first strike, hexproof, lifelink, trampling rhinos. And Snapcaster Mage can't deal with that. Not even close. Not really any creature can do anything about it, but Snapcaster Mage especially is pretty weak, and you're just better off playing other cards that could do more than what Snapcaster Mage offers. And ultimately, as I feel like I say in a lot of the videos, and I probably do, it's really a shame because this card, has like kind of the tools. It doesn't have that kind of like built-in like upgrade. Like as the format gets newer, there's more spells, there's more efficient spells that can be played. In the case of like Liliana, I think the format is like way too fast, and what she offers and what she does wants you to play a longer game, and a lot of the decks just can't afford to play those longer games because of like the catch-up ability of some of the top decks in the format. So it kind of makes sense why Liliana isn't really all that good. But Snapcaster Mage just doesn't work. It just doesn't seem like it's all that powerful of a card anymore, even though it has all the tools of being a very good card. It still blocks, non-trampling threats. It blocks all day. It can still like trade off with some of the other creatures in the format. It attacks down like a Ren and 6. After a Ren's like pinged one of your things, you just like cast a Snapcaster Mage, and you can end up kind of hunting it down and eventually getting rid of it. But overall, the format just isn't there anymore. And it's a little unfortunate for Snapcaster Mage because, again, like it's a super powerful card. It has all the potential in the world to be like a game ender. It has this such high ceiling, but the floor on it is so low that you're just better off playing something else that is going to be a little bit more consistent on a game-to-game basis rather than something that's going to be more boom or bust. And a lot of times, like probably more bust than anything else. And a little unfortunate. Some like fun facts, I guess, about Snapcaster Mage 2. This is an invitational card where we kind of seen like the world champion get their likeness and, help designing, cards like we'd seen on like Fairy Mastermind. We'd seen it like Elite Spellbinder, for like Paulo and Fervent Champion and things like that. Snapcaster Mage is actually another one of those cards. It took a lot longer this time because this is based on like Tiago Chan, who had won the Players Invitational in like 2007, and Snapcaster Mage came out in 2011. And I want to say this is like the last card that they did in the player's likeness up until, we had Fervent Champion with Javier Dominguez. So a really cool card. And I mean, this did see a lot of play, just like Dark Confidant did, back in its heyday. Snapcaster Mage, same thing, like saw a good amount of play, was very powerful, very versatile card, all the way up until, like I said, the late 2010s, where it started to drop off a little bit. But even when it showed up, it was still very good and very powerful. And, only up until like the 2020s, and as we got back from like the pandemic and everything, this card slowly started to trail off, and then eventually just became non-existent and really only sees play with ways of benefiting, playing wizards rather than just flashing back very powerful spells. So, yeah, that is the unfortunately sad tale of Snapcaster Mage. A card that, even though as time moves on and it gets better, like one half of it gets better, the other half just lags behind and overall just brings it down. And the fact that, too, that its ability really isn't that powerful anymore. So, unfortunate, but, that's why, unfortunately, it ends up on this list. Maybe one day Snapcaster Mage will be able to come back in some capacity and make a huge run at the format, but we'll just have to wait and see. So, that's going to do it for me in this video. I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like on the video. Comment down below what card you would like to see here. I have a few ideas, going forward, but I would really love to kind of know what other people would want to see from this series. If there's any other additional information or whatever that I can offer, as well. That would be a great help to kind of improving these videos and kind of like the quality overall. Of course, consider subscribing to the channel, ring the notification bell if you want to see more videos sort of like this and a lot of other videos pertaining to the Modern and Pioneer format. And of course, check out the Casual Spikes podcast, which happens every Saturday, where we talk about, the Modern and Pioneer format on all of the competitive levels and discuss various topics within that realm as well. So that's going to do it for me. Hope you all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you all in the next one.